Welcome back, Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy, and let's talk about all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in the first trailer for the Book of Boba Fett. Careful for spoilers, because I'm going to guess about some plot details here, and you never know, I might actually get something right. But first, our Screen Crush trivia question. The answer will be at the end of the video, or skip straight to this time code. The question is, in the MC Chris song Fett's Vet, what kind of vehicle is Boba Fett riding around Mos Espa? Now to the trailer. The first shot starts off on Tatooine with this weird spider robot that we first saw here in Return of the Jedi. This is actually a Bomar monk. They're a religious order that believe that to obtain enlightenment, they had to remove their brains from their physical bodies, and that's what's in this little bowl. Its brain. Now, this is an interesting way to open the trailer because Jabba's palace is actually a Bomar monastery. He came in and started using it because, well, they were all just brains walking around inside spiders and they couldn't do anything about it. So think of Jabba's palace and his criminal organization like a hermit crab shell. The hermit crab will eventually outgrow its shell and move on to another crab shell. In the same way, Jabba replaced the monks, Bib Fortuna replaced Jabba, Boba Fett replaced Bib Fortuna. It's saying that the life of a criminal underlord is always temporary, and that Boba Fett is now walking on that same knife's edge.
I am not a bounty hunter. I've heard otherwise.
This is probably Boba talking to the Ithorian Lord that we see in a moment, but he's also talking to us.
To me?
Yes, Doug, to you.
I am not a bounty hunter.
Letting us know that he no longer sees himself as someone who is doing the bidding of others. Think about what he's been through. He escaped the Sarlaac.
In his belly you will find a new definition of pain and suffering as you are slowly digested over 1,000 years.
That's about as low and painful as you can possibly get in life. And somewhere in the belly of that beast, Boba Fett swore that he would never be on the bottom again. Grow up. Then we see him suiting up in his Mandalorian armor attended to by a droid. So I think this is his bedroom at the top of the tower where we see Fennec Shand and he later on. Notice that the curtains match. And what about this device behind him? Well, it could be a tanning bed, but you know what, it's Tatooine, so probably not. It could also be a healing chamber to fix his Sarlaac wounds, but that's what Bacta is for. So I think this is actually just where he sleeps, in a sealed, locked, Daredevil 2003-esque sarcophagus container. It's the only way to make 100% sure that he's not assassinated in his sleep. He might have even learned this from his father Jango, who hired Zam Wesell to assassinate Padme in her sleep with these little robot snake droid things. We see Fennec Shand by his side. Now you'll remember that he saved her life in The Mandalorian. Also, I'm thinking they might have known each other for years before that. Fennec Shand appeared in The Bad Batch as a bounty hunter hired to kidnap Omega. Now, around this same time, Boba Fett was already making a name for himself as a bounty hunter. It's a small galaxy and a pretty small industry. I'm sure these two ran into each other at some point between the trilogies. The two of them are walking through the streets of this city, which I don't think it's Tatooine. It's not quite barren enough, and this is way larger than the three biggest settlements on that dusty rock. Remember, Tatooine is the planet that's farthest from the bright center of the universe. Now in The Mandalorian, we saw that Jabba's absence has made Tatooine an even quieter planet, as the rogues and bounty hunters no longer travel through Mos Eisley. Now I like that this show is dealing with power vacuums. In the Mandalorian flashback, we saw Cobb Vanth taking on the Red Key Raiders, one of the groups that tried to keep Tatooine for themselves. Now we're going to see Boba Fett consolidate all of these various groups across the galaxy. So if you've seen the Clone Wars, then this storyline might sound familiar. There was an arc where Darth Maul, who did survive his Haven, goes around with his brother to consolidate the various crime syndicates in the galaxy into what they called the Shadow Collective.
We have our army now.
Now this Shadow Collective later included Mandalorians, which caused a divide among the Mandalorians that led to a civil war, which on Mandalore they just call Tuesday. I bring this up because Maul's Mandalorians had horned helmets to honor him, and so did the armorer in The Mandalorian. So it is possible that his acolytes kept on going and that they could encounter Boba Fett in this series. And if you're wondering, Maul is dead in this time period. This is set after the Return of the Jedi, and Darth Maul definitely died just before A New Hope. But before dying, Darth Maul consolidated crime lords into the organization Crimson Dawn, which we saw in Solo. So maybe Boba Fett will try to take them over as well. He might even cross paths with Kira, who in the comics has become the leader of Crimson Dawn. Now back to the trailer, we see that he's talking to an Ithorian ruler attended to by a Twi'lek. Remember, Ithorians actually sound like this. But this device around his neck is a translator. So here's a side note. The runes on the throne here actually spell out Boba Fett over and over, meaning that this is either just one cool Easter egg, or at one point, Boba Fett did control Tatooine briefly and Jabba took it over from him. Or maybe Boba Fett gave him the throne as a nice gift to remember him by. It's probably just a cool Easter egg though. Boba says,
Jabba ruled with fear.
Right when we see one of the Ithorian soldiers drawing his weapon, looking terrified. So Boba's reputation has definitely preceded him as the baddest bounty hunter in the galaxy. And his own Gamorrean guards are drawing their weapons as well, which is like being a lifeguard at the Olympics. This is Boba Fett, bro. He doesn't need the pigman's help. And then he answers with,
I intend to rule with respect.
and we've actually seen Boba Fett rule this way before. In the Clone Wars animated series, he ran a syndicate of bounty hunters when he was still a child.
Hey, boss.
Boss, this is your boss.
So speaking of that, if I had to guess what planet this is on, I would say Serrano, a world where Boba Fett's bounty hunter syndicate was defeated when he was still a kid, so he might still have a grudge there.
I'm here to make a proposal that's mutually beneficial.
Then we see him host a meeting of Jabba's former captains, including a Trandoshan, an Aqualish, and your mom. This is a common trope in gangster stories, spanning from the meeting of the 5 families in The Godfather, all the way up to The Wire.
Is you taking notes on a criminal conspiracy?
Fennec Shand and Boba Fett overlook their empire at the top of the palace as we see sand people emerging from a sandstorm. Now remember, Boba Fett lived with the Tusken Raiders for years. They rescued him. He carried a Tusken rifle with him. So we might be seeing a situation like in Dune, where Paul made an alliance with the local desert population to consolidate his own power on the planet. And just the idea of Boba Fett leading an army of Tusken Raiders against gangsters on Tatooine is amazing, and I want to see it.
Why speak of conflict when cooperation can make us all rich?
And this is very interesting because he's trying to stop the feuds between criminal empires and form a co-op. Again, like that organization in The Wire, where all of Baltimore's drug kingpins shared resources and stopped fighting one another.
All those in favor of going together so we can get the best discount on New York package. Raise up.
Now in this joint, these 2 Twi'leks are looking at him, but see this guy in the corner? That's the same species as Ochi, the Sith assassin who killed Rey's parents. In the comics between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, Ochi actually swore loyalty to Kira and Crimson Dawn. So this could be him as a spy for Crimson Dawn, hinting at the appearance of Emilia Clarke in this show. This Twi'lek is wearing a circle bisecting the center, like a version of the Crimson Dawn crest. So maybe their logo could have changed in these intervening years. And this one is wearing a gold bikini just like Leia did when she was Jabba's slave. Next we see Fennec Shand by the throne attacking someone. I'm wondering if this is part of the scene that we see at the end of the trailer, but more on that in a bit. Then the text, every galaxy has an underworld. So the Book of Boba Fett is actually a new reiteration of a planned live-action show called Star Wars Underworld, which would have been set between the trilogies. It was developed in the late 2000s, and you can even watch a visual effects sizzle reel online. And then we see Slave One flying to reinforce that Boba Fett is not going to delegate anything. He's going to form this criminal co-op by himself. His greatest asset is his own reputation. When Boba Fett shows up in person, people listen.
What prevents us all from killing you?
And this is the question he's going to have to answer all across the galaxy, as he has to personally bring these crime lords into line. Now the trailer ends with them being attacked by a well-armed gang, but look how well armed these criminals are. Energy shields, marrying the tech from the prequels with the original trilogy era. This is showing that the Republic is having a really hard time controlling the underworld. They're an unstable government without a military presence, and this is hinting at the eventual takeover by the First Order. So gangs and syndicates are well armed. They're almost like personal militias. Some have new tech like this, while others are using old Imperial weaponry like we saw in The Mandalorian. So we see his helmet drop to the ground, filled with Republic credits. And again, this is a great metaphor for showing how weak and ineffective the Republic is. I actually have no theory on why his helmet was filled with credits, other than maybe he and Fennec were busking. If you have a theory, let me know down in the comments. So then we get to see a little bit of what we really want, Boba kicking ass. So this shows why Boba is the heavy, the guy you don't want to cross. But this line,
I intend to rule with respect,
shows that Boba Fett would rather people want to work with him, so he can stop sleeping in a cage every night.
If you had spoken such insolence to Jabba, he'd have fed you to his menagerie.
And what did Fennec mean here by feed you to his menagerie? Well, as everyone knows, Jabba had a rancor that he fed people to. But in the Bad Batch, they rescued a baby Rancor called Muchi that also belonged to Jabba. This is not the same Rancor that we saw in Return of the Jedi, so Jabba could have had a menagerie of beasts that he fed people to. Here's hoping that we get to see multiple Rancors and monsters go at it in this series, with Boba Fett leading the charge. So he ends by saying,
Please, speak freely.
Which might remind you of Kill Bill. After Oren Ishii becomes head of the Yakuza, she beheads a lieutenant for insulting her parents, and then says,
As your leader, I encourage you from time to time, and always in a respectful manner, to question my logic.
I'm wondering if we'll really get into the heart of what makes Boba Fett tick. If one of these guys insults his dad or calls him a filthy Strandcast clone, then we'll see him lose his cool. We'll see what actually matters to him personally, not just for financial gain. And now the answer to our Screen Crush trivia question: what vehicle is Boba Fett driving in the opening of MC Chris's song Fett's Vet? That would be a DeLorean, because he is a peacetime Mandalorian whose story has stumped Star Wars historians deep in debate while they plate at Bennigan's. Well, that's all the Easter eggs that I found, but if you found any, let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, be sure to subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.
That old boy Juggernaut sure made a mess. About like that Yankee general. Sure.